Greetings, everyone. My name is Stacy Aquero. I am an international admissions counselor at Stony Brook University. I am joined by my colleague, Brendan, who I'm going to let introduce himself super quick.
Hi, everybody. Thanks to EdBrand and the College Fair today. Hopefully, you're getting a lot out of the sessions. As Stacy said, my name is Brendan Bond. I work at Syracuse University on our international admissions team and work specifically with students from South Asia. So it's a real pleasure to have the opportunity to chat with you all today.
So thanks so much again for joining us. We are here to talk to you about the common mistakes that are made when students are filling out the application and completing and submitting their essay for universities. So I'm going to go ahead and start with some of the common application mistakes that we see, regardless of which application you use. So it's a little confusing when you're seeing common mistakes, common application, but there are many applications that different universities use, including the common application or the coalition application, state university system applications, or of course, universities have their own application as well. When you're filling out an application or really any documents that you are going to have to fill out for your application to your university, there are some common very general mistakes that students tend to make. I want to talk first about date of birth, name, address, and email address. Those are all real key indicators to Stony Brook on how to help us find your application. So often you will send in documents, or your school will send in documents such as transcripts or letters of reference. You will have testing agencies send in test scores like a TOEFL, an IELTS, an SAT, whatever it may be. And we will also have to communicate to you via your address and your email address. When you have either your date of birth or your email address or your name different on documents, it will be impossible for admissions officers to find your application and match it to those SAT scores or those TOEFL scores or that transcript. So it's really important that all of your documents have your name and date of birth the same way. Specifically date of birth, I also want to mention that in the US, we have to be unlike everyone else, and we use the format month, date, year, year. So when I say that, let's take today for an example, which is the day of the fair, August 28th, 2021. We would write that numerically 08/28/2021 or 2021, where in most other countries, it's going to be written 28/08/2021. And often students reverse it and we know it, but when it's in our system and we have ways to match your application by date of birth or match your documents by date of birth, it really can get confusing. So if you have documents that have your date of birth differently or your name spelled differently, it's very often on test scores that your name is just slightly different than how you put it in the application. It's really important to contact us so we can match all of those documents. The other thing that I want to bring to your attention is if you already have a passport when applying, which a lot of students do, it really is best to put your name as exactly as it is on your passport, because eventually, hopefully you'll be admitted to one of those universities you're applying to. You're going to need an I-20 to study in the US, and that I-20 will have to match your name on the passport. So a lot of information right there, and really just important to sort of have all of those features that we talked about correct. I mentioned quickly email addresses. Email addresses are also one of those things that sometimes we use to help match a student's application. You email us with an email address. We have an email address in the system from you for your application. Sometimes they are different. It's really best to choose one email address that you're going to use for your entire time while applying to the university until you arrive at that university. The other thing that's really important to keep in mind is to constantly check that email. I know that email is probably not used as often. Of course, universities will sometimes text message students, will use WeChat or WhatsApp, sometimes even to connect with you, but important information that is being sent to you, like your acceptance information, later on down the road, information about registration and I-20 and enroll, all of that sort of really significant information that might seem a little lengthy is going to have to go in an email. So for you to have to constantly check it is going to be really, really important. My friend Brendan is going to talk in a few minutes about the college essay and some things, and probably is going to mention some typos and how to avoid them. But typos in your application can be just as bad as a typo in your essay. So make sure there are no typos and you're actually really focusing on spell checking and reviewing that. And the last tip I'm going to give about some mistakes that are made while filling out your application is actually submitting the application. There are a lot of students who go through the process, and we know sometimes it can be a little tedious of one of those larger applications, and you're filling in sections and coming back to it, and then you actually never hit the submit button. So a lot of times students will contact us and say, I haven't heard from you, I submitted my application, and we'll be able to look in the back end of that system's application and say, actually, you never submitted. You got to go back and finish this, this, and this, and hit submit. So make sure you're submitting by the deadline. So super important. And on to you, Brendan.
Thanks, Stacy. Those are some great tips relative to the Common Application. And as was mentioned, I'm going to be talking now a little bit about some common mistakes that happen with the essay. So this is relative to either, the Common App essay, the college essay that you'll have to complete if you're doing the Common App, or maybe a statement of intent as part of another application, or even some universities may have supplemental essay topics supplemental parts of their application where you have to complete like a short answer paragraph response essay. And so all of the tips that I'll be giving are going to be really great in regards to completing those essays. And so just in terms of some general pointers around the essay, first of all, they're a really important part of the application process to a US university because they really allow universities another way to get a picture of you as an applicant and show other aspects of your personal characteristics, your current situation, things that you're interested in, ways in which that you're interested in studying at the university. But more importantly, it's a direct way to communicate to the admissions committee to get a really good sense of your critical thinking ability, communication skills, and other areas of importance in your life. And so what are some of the common mistakes that we see as admissions officers that we can try to give some pointers surrounding when students approach these types of college essays? Again, whether it's the Common App essay, a supplemental essay, or another essay as part of the application. And firstly, the biggest pointer I want to talk about really is choosing the topic and trying to be original and not cliche. I know that it sounds harder than it is, but if you just follow me along through some of these pointers, I hope you can get a better sense of what I mean. And really, it's about maybe some topics to avoid that we see quite often in college essays. You want to choose your topic wisely. You want to tell a story in a unique and impactful way. Remember that even though these stories may have felt life-changing to you, and not to say that they aren't, you have to think that, a university like Syracuse University, for example, we received 41,000 applications last year. And so chances are the life situation that happened to you may have happened to another student. And not to say that you shouldn't write about that. I think it's just really in the way in which you approach that topic and really try to think in a unique and thoughtful way. And some of the essays that we really receive quite a lot of similarity between revolve around the topics of, perhaps the death of a family member and an extended family member. And again, I know that obviously is highly impactful maybe to your life. but it's something that we really see quite often in the college essay topics. Another topic that we often see surrounds the big game, for example, you overcoming a challenge as it relates to athletics or sports. And again, it's a situation that's probably highly impactful in your individual life, but it's also another essay topic that we see very, very common, quite a lot, I should say, in terms of the application review process. And so in terms of those common responses, again, they may be impactful in your individual life. And if you feel like you can approach those topics in a unique and thoughtful way, certainly go ahead with them. But just keep in mind that those are very, very common topics that we see as admissions counselors. And in trying to stand out in a pool of 40,000 applicants, I know that's really hard to do, but this is one way in which you can, maybe by choosing a more unique and thoughtful approach in terms of actually choosing the topic. Another pointer I want to talk about relative to completing college essays, again, whatever type of essay that you're completing as part of the application for your particular university, is relying too much on a thesaurus. Your essays should show your personality, your academic ability, your critical thinking, as it refers to your own ability. You should write them using your own voice. So in following, you want to be eloquent and choose your vocabulary naturally. If you go in and start replacing words with the synonyms that you find in a thesaurus, you can really lose clarity and really lose your own voice. And ultimately, that's what we're trying to discover in approaching these types of essays. And frankly, it can become really, really obvious when we're reading an essay and you start to get the flow and the sense of a student's voice and their ability. And then all of a sudden there's a word that just stands out, pops out. This does not sound like something that would come from the student's vocabulary. And that's distracting. That's distracting to the way in which we would approach that essay. And you don't want your reader to be distracted when they're going through your essay. You want that essay to read naturally and to flow smoothly. Even if you think maybe my ability is not going to be the same ability as someone who's applying from the United States, because English may be my second language. That's, we're going to take that into the context of the application review and obviously in the way in which we read your essay. And so there's a little bit of leeway there because we understand as folks that work with international students that naturally your English language ability may just not be on par as a student who grew up in the United States, of course, right? And so really take that into account when you're approaching your essay and really please keep the thesaurus down. The last piece of advice that I want to give that refers to some common mistakes surrounding writing these essays, and it kind of refers back to what Stacy was saying earlier in terms of proofreading, not proofwriting, but proofreading and typos. It's always amazing to me when reading an essay and there's just a really glaring mistake in the formatting or in the spelling, or sometimes students may forget to swap out university names when it comes to the applying school. If you're applying to Stony Brook University and your essay begins, I want to study at Syracuse University, that's going to be a pretty big distraction to the reader, especially if they're coming from, on the application committee at Stony Brook. And so you really want as many eyes as possible to take a look at these essays. Use your academic resources to see and proofread appropriately. Spell check really is not enough when it comes to these types of essays. And sometimes something that I do when I'm writing something, something extended for work or for professional life, I'll often read it back aloud. And then reading something aloud that you wrote, you slow down, you approach it almost from a new perspective as opposed to just your inner voice. Reading it aloud can really help you catch some other common typos that you might have in your essay. And so oftentimes, I think just kind of one more point that I'll leave you that hopefully is kind of a theme in terms of some of these mistakes that I've talked about. Oftentimes, what's more important in approaching essays in the application process, again, call it the Common App essay, a statement of intent, a supplemental short answer as part of the application review. Oftentimes, what is much more important is how you are communicating rather than what you are communicating, right? Again, think about it. If I'm reviewing 40,000 applications, chances are a lot of the same themes are going to be coming through in those essays in terms of content. So what's really going to stand out is the ability, in essence, your writing ability, the way in which you communicate rather than what you're communicating. I hope that's clear and makes sense in terms of the last piece of advice that I'll leave you with. But I think that kind of wraps up our short little novella of a presentation. What would be the best way to describe it? But thank you so much for taking a chance to check out our little video here. Enjoy the rest of the fair. I'll leave you with my contact information. You can reach me at bpbond@syr.edu, bpbond@syr.edu. Like I said, I work with international students and especially South Asian students. So please feel free to contact me with any other questions you have. And I don't know, Stacey, do you want to share your contact information? I know it's kind of difficult when you're trying to spell out email addresses, but I'll let you have at it.
Absolutely. So you can actually, on the top of the corner, you can see our general email address. So if you don't catch it, because from New York, I talk too fast sometimes.
Right.
But my email is my name, basically, Stacey. So STACEY dot, like a period, Aquaro, ACQUARO @stonybrook.edu. But please come visit us at our tables as well after hearing this presentation, because the fair is probably about to open right after this presentation. So definitely come visit us as well.
Okay, well, thanks a lot, folks, and we'll see you in the fair.